Okay, so look, we had a little bit of fun with some of our suppliers there, but again, of course, we must recognise the importance of the suppliers, mainly because I'm one myself. So again, I take my hat off to all the guys who've come up and just had a quick 5-minute quick-fire sort of discussion about who they are. Obviously, without these guys sponsoring and attending and exhibiting, we wouldn't have these sort of events. So again, thanks to all of the sponsors, thanks to all the private sector organisations coming along to this. We're going to finish off. We're actually going to finish off the whole damn summit with a private sector organisation, albeit you've heard from him earlier, and he's had a bit of a New York fire thing going on as well in his past. And what I asked him to look at was the business case for new investment. So all those companies out there who want to sell, what's the kind of argument you're going to need to make to make, I don't know, Dave Jackson or Frankfurt Airport or whoever they are buy your stuff? What do you think, Chris? Are you going to tell us some of that?
So, couple of confessions. Number one, I don't have any techno music in my presentation.
That's very
Everybody
poor.
else did that.
That's
it
very
was very
poor.
Inspirational. I apologize I don't have it. Second thing, it's the worst session title I've ever heard in my life. I wouldn't have come to it. In fact, I wasn't going to come to it, and then I realized I was supposed to present it.
Yeah.
So I'm here.
I'm going to leave you to it now, but there's your clicker thing.
All right,
Good
we
luck.
got this.
Oh,
Thank
hang on. I'm going to have to fiddle with your
what
dress there. You've got a little turned-up collar.
Well, thank you.
There's
I
people in the front
appreciate that.
row didn't want that.
We get graded on that, right?
Yeah.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for being here for the last session of this particular event. Before I get started, I think one thing is absolutely essential. I don't know how many of you in this room have ever done an event like this. Who has? Who has planned it, put it together, tried to get people to come to a conference, try to stay in the conference sessions? I think we actually owe a little bit of gratitude to both Peter for being the leader of this particular band of merry women and men learning about control rooms, but also to the staff that works here and all the work that they put on together to make this happen. So if you would just please give them a round of applause. So when we talk about critical control rooms, when we talk about audiovisual, when we talk about all the technology that you've heard up here today so eloquently described by those who do this as their business, there's a bigger problem and a bigger challenge that I'm sure all of you have at some time faced. And Peter hinted at it just a moment ago. It's taking the reality of what you provide and connecting it with the challenge faced by that room where you're trying to build a relationship. The first, most fundamental piece of advice as a former practitioner in the space that I must provide you is that if you cannot draw a direct line between what you do and why the people in that organization should care, then do not bother. Because quite frankly, those who run control rooms all have certain things in common. They're overworked, they're overstressed. They have to deal with explaining their problems and challenges to a variety of stakeholders who oftentimes hold the key to the money, but not the key to the understanding. So what that means is they're in a really difficult situation, even getting their normal day-to-day financial needs met inside an organization. Much less going to their leadership and saying, hey, here's this great new thing that we need to buy. You have to give them the why. You have to explain to them why it's important, why it matters, and how you're going to make the life of their organization and probably their individual careers better as well. Not just because they're self-serving, but because that level of understanding, I don't think they're self-serving at all, but that level of understanding helps get them over the hurdle and the hump to understand why it's important. For me personally, as a former director in a control room, as a former user of control room equipment, now a vendor of that equipment, and as a former member and leader in an association that moves control rooms forward, what I wanted to take a few moments up here today and share with you are some connect the dots moments that I've actually experienced myself. Some times where I've been in the position to see exactly what you all offer, exactly how those of us in the control room environment can benefit, and to help fill in some of those gaps so that hopefully when you engage with them, you'll have a better understanding, if you're a vendor, of what they need. If you're on the other side of the equation, you may have a better understanding of what's possible. So that's what I'm up here to talk about today. And I'm going to start with, who has ever been in an auto accident, a motor vehicle accident of any kind, or seen one? Did you have to call for help in that? Anyone? It's a little hard to see, so I need emphatic nodders or hand raisers, or else I'll think you're all gone to sleep, and then I'll feel really bad. All right, so when you called for help, how did you do so? Telephone. That's probably 99% of what we do to report emergencies today, right? We pick up a phone and we dial it. Now, thanks to some smart people about 35 years ago who started a trend of us now having smart devices in our hands, we have the opportunity to make a whole lot more phone calls. But the reality is that today, in most of the world, it's still just a phone call. It's still just one voice talking to another, trying to paint a picture of what's going on. This is, it might be a little hard to see. It's an old photo and it's kind of washed out, but that's a motorcycle that's flipped over. How serious can those types of accidents be? Pretty serious, right? So if the responder's going to that, do you wonder, sometimes I wonder, did they know? Did they know they were going to something that had the possibility of a very severely injured patient? Did they have that level of data? Or did they just go, just like they would to a fender bender, and actually arrive to find somebody in extremely serious condition who required a helicopter, who required advanced medical care, who required resources that may not have been there? There's a very famous story, and I apologize, I'm going to talk a little bit about a crazy American tradition. And I know we sort of have a monopoly on these, and no one in this room will know anything about what I'm talking about because you have no example from your own where you went to college. We have a school in the United States, that was sarcasm, I apologize. We have a college in the United States called Texas A&M. Every year they do a bonfire. Not just any bonfire, they pile up about 8 stories worth of logs. Stop me when this sounds like this could get really unsafe. A whole bunch of college students for 24 hours a day pile logs into a giant pile about as tall as the building we're in right now. And then what do they do? Because what would any college student do in that situation? They set it on fire while they're drinking. Challenging situation. Unfortunately, about 20 years ago, about 25 years ago now, that tower of logs collapsed. And it pinned approximately 55 students in the wreckage. And the call, just like the call that would have been made for this, the call went to 911, and a control operator, or 112 in our case, or 999 if we were just further down the road in England. The call went to that call operator, and they answered the phone, and they were told what was going on, and do you know what they sent? They had 58 trapped people. I don't think I have too many control room operators in the room. Why don't you tell me what you would send? What would you send to that if somebody called and told you that? What would go? Now's your chance. What would you send?
Depends if you believe them or not.
Depends if you believe them or not. Now, how about when you got the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 9th, and 23rd call? So now we know we've got something. They sent 1 ambulance, and they sent 1 fire truck. And the equipment to actually pull people from under the rubble did not come for 45 minutes. Now, would that event be different today? It would be different from the perspective of the people there. But would the control center have the ability to use that data? Would they get the Facebook videos, the Instagram videos, the Snapchats, the text messages, and God knows what else would come from people that just watched a giant tower of logs land on people that they knew? I don't know if it would be or not. And that's the challenge. That's what we're trying to do, is understand that we could do better. That for each one of the events that we get today, we get vastly more information than we got before. And the amount of information that's coming in is only increasing. Who has an iPhone in their pocket right now? And who looks at it for their health information? The day is coming soon where that will be connected to 112 and 911 and 999. How about the information from traffic cameras? It warmed my heart to hear folks talk about using traffic cameras years ago in emergency services here in Europe. We still have agencies that don't do that in the United States, that still have a policy when they get a car accident on a highway, they put ambulances on either end of where it could possibly be and have them go to the middle to meet and find where this is. In essence, trying to find an auto accident the same way you would have found a German submarine in World War II. I think we can do better than that. I think we can do better. This particular example that I have up here behind, it's a closer photo from what you saw at the beginning, is a prime example of that from my own career. That building, as you can see, hopefully, is completely on fire. And it was on fire as a result of a gas explosion that happened in the city of New York, in a very busy neighborhood called the Lower East Side. It happened in the middle of the afternoon. The fire dispatch facility that got that alarm got approximately 45 calls. 45 calls. 44 of which said the building blew up on 2nd Avenue and East 7th Street. 2nd Avenue and East 7th Street. They got one call that said 1st Avenue and East 7th Street. It's about a quarter of a mile, maybe 2 kilometers different. Guess where they sent them? To the wrong one. And the fire apparatus that was responding came across this on their way going to the wrong address, and came back and called them on the radio and said, hey, we don't know if there's a building that blew up on 1st Avenue, but there's definitely one that blew up on 2nd Avenue. We're going to stop here. New York City firefighters never lose their ability to be sarcastic on the radio, no matter how busy it is. But that's an AV problem to me. That's a data problem to me. If we allow people to make ridiculous decisions despite the evidence of data that proves they're making a ridiculous decision, that's an opportunity for us to display information in a way that allows the entire operation to be more effective. And if you can do it on a 7-story building that exploded, the whole back of the building's gone. If you can do that with that, imagine how easy it is to make that same mistake with somebody that's just having a heart attack or one auto accident. That's the challenge. That's the connection to the real world problems that if we effectively use AV inside our organizations, we can do better. This particular photo, does anybody want to guess the value of what you see in the background of that photo? How much that's worth? That water you see there? That's about a $5 billion photo. Because what that photo represents is the fact that it's not just public safety, and the fact that the integration of data from multiple sources, especially AV data, is incredibly valuable if people know it's available. That water is inside a New York City subway station in October of 2012 as a result of Superstorm Sandy, one of the most catastrophic things that's ever happened in the United States of America. And there's water in that subway because the city of New York said, oh no, it's not going to be that bad. And then they shrugged and lost their subway system. Anybody know how much it is to build a subway system back? It's a lot of money. Those were decisions that probably would have been influenced positively by having additional information, especially an awareness of what was going on. Even more scary than this was, and I don't know if obviously in Amsterdam we have folks that are very well versed in flood control. But for those of you that are not, one of the biggest challenges of managing an event like this, whether you're in public safety or the utility sector, is that where you can go changes constantly. So for us in this case, we had areas of the city that were completely inaccessible one moment, and then 20 minutes later, you could get into them again because a tide shifted or a current shifted or whatever, and then 20 minutes later, you couldn't get back there. That's an AV data mapping, CAD, public safety, information, transit problem for the ages. And here's the really sad part, and here's the challenge, and why events like this are so important, and why conversations that you will have here are so important. Those challenges are not going away. They are only becoming more and more frequent. It is interesting to watch those who doubt that reality say over and over again, well, there's another once in a 500-year storm, or there's another once in a 1,000-year storm. And they say it 2 or 3 years in a row and don't connect the dots. But the information is there, whether they realize it or not, for us to make better decisions and make better solutions. That is our challenge. And where are we headed? This is another auto accident, a little more recent. Hopefully the photo's a little more clear. Just a simple auto accident in 10 years. How will we hear about it? Maybe today in some of your more advanced communities with a serious amount of technology integrated into your control rooms and your traffic management centers. How do you hear about it today? How do you hear about an auto accident? The car calls. And if you don't get it from the car, where else can you get it? Who here has seen AI tagged to traffic cameras? So the AI actually knows there's an auto accident in the field of vision of the camera, pings it up to the center so you can see it and go, oh wow, look at that. How about the way, we saw a Google demonstration earlier about what happens with their mapping. Well, there's an app called Waze that we have in the United States. I don't know if you have it over here. That we get auto accident reports from that app sooner than we get them by phone. So the car's going to call, the app's going to call, the traffic camera's going to call, the road sensor is going to call. Good Lord, who knows how many other things are going to call. And we're going to go from today, where maybe the only thing you get is that voice call, to a world in very short order where you may not get a voice call at all. That is an enormous, enormous business change. And the control rooms here, the control rooms in Asia, the control rooms in America, the control rooms everywhere are going to need a whole lot of help to make that work. So that they don't get overloaded with data, so they don't get overloaded with conversation, so that they know that they can still do the amazing work they do every day, but do it even better and not have it diminished. Whether it's AV technology that they're using, whether it's their systems integration technology, whether it's the furniture they're using, whatever those things are, we have an obligation to ensure that it helps to support this new world that's being created almost by the minute inside public safety, utilities, and other agencies and entities around the world that rely on critical control rooms. That's on us. So that when there's a big community event, we have the tools to help ensure that it's more safe. We have the tools to know when there are risks that we need to plan for. We have the tools to mitigate as best we can whatever those unexpected challenges are that occur, whether it's a turbine going out at a hydroelectric plant or whether, God forbid, it's another shooting like what we had in Las Vegas. All of those tools are out there. So what do we need to do? The three things I'll leave you with. First is communication. Talk to the people who are your customer, and if you're a customer, talk to the people who are your vendor. It astonishes me how many times we hear that because of a conversation that didn't happen, a solution failed. And not just a solution failed, millions or maybe even more dollars wasted, time wasted, operations negatively impacted. Why? Because people didn't sit down and have a conversation. That is the saddest thing in the world. Because that same device that you're going to use maybe to call the auto accident or maybe it calls for you, that's a communications device, isn't it? And amazing how we all have them, yet we still sometimes fail at that basic responsibility as part of running a project or improving an operation. Conversation. Not just the easy conversations. Be willing to have the hard ones. When things aren't working, when you're worried about a project, when you're worried about whether or not something could be integrated, have that conversation. Both ways, vendor and customer. And then lastly, one of the things that I hope you all got out of this event, I know I did, I'm fortunate this is the second time I've been over for an event like this, the amazing power of collaboration. No one person can know all this stuff. No one person can have the best solution. No one person can solve every challenge that's faced by a critical control room. But by God, tell you what, with all the people that are in this room, and even earlier today when we had a few more people in the room, but that's okay, I guarantee you we could solve a whole lot of problems together. And if not with the people that were in the room, with the people they know and the people they could bring in. So please understand the times are changing in the critical control room world. The technology is changing. The demands and expectation of the public, no matter what language you speak, those are also changing. And the only way that we will ensure that that future is even better than what we have today is through collaboration, conversation, and communication. Thank you very much for the privilege to speak. I'd be happy to answer a couple questions. Peter?
Thank you very much indeed, Chris. Very, very forthright and thrusting presentation. Thank you for that, Chris. Would anyone like to ask a question at all about the business case or any of the other aspects that were covered off in that conversation there?
You're not going to get to throw that at anybody,
I'm really
Peter.
not, am I? I'm so disappointed. Anyway, okay. It's something, because we have these. In our company, we have these. Yeah, they're very good.
It's a dangerous,
well, it is.
toy.
Maybe they should make it circular. Anyway, if it was me, it would probably end up in all the wrong places. Chris, if there are no questions, they probably realise it's because it's getting towards the end of the day. So I think what I'm going to just say is thank you for making the trip across from the good old US of A. We very much appreciate hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you all.